What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
America. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At Grand Canyon University, we believe in equal opportunity, and the American dream starts with purpose. To serve others in ways that promote human flourishing and create a ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You have my sword.
And you have my bow.
And my trowel.
Hello, you're listening to episode 24 of And My Trowel, where we look at the fantastic side of archaeology and the archaeological side of fantasy. I'm Tilly.
And I'm Ash.
And today we're going to be investigating something a little bit magical.
Ooh, what is it?
No, I mean literally, we're looking at magic.
Oh, magic, right. Okay, what do you mean? What kind of magic?
Well, remember a while ago when we had to intervene with the extremely obvious and regular Society of Wizards while they were having a theoretical argument?
You mean when we had to explain processional and post-processional approaches to stop them throwing fireballs at each other?
Exactly. By the way, for those who missed it, check out episode 13. Well, they have come to us for help with a project they're currently working on about the history of magic. So, here's the deal. So the extremely obvious and regular Society of Wizards are currently writing a history of the society, but they've gotten a little bit stumped right at the start. Classic, really. They're trying to find out when the society could technically be identified as having started, but in order to do that, they first need to work out when wizards came into existence. And a wizard, according to their definition, is simply a human who is able to manipulate magic in some way. So therefore, they have to determine the origin point of magic use by humans, which goes very, very, very far back in time. So they need the help of a professional team of archaeologists to help them out. So I signed us up.
Well, at least they're not throwing fireballs at each other anymore.
Exactly. So, Ash, as with every archaeological investigation, let's start with a literature review. And by that, I mean fantasy literature. I feel like asking the question, which fantasy books have you read that feature magic, is a little superfluous because
every single
pretty
one.
much every single one. Yeah, right. I'm trying to think of a fantasy book I've read that doesn't feature magic. I don't think.
Just the absolute silence. Don't think so.
Is there one? I mean,
there's like ones that are like contemporary AUs, but like they still feature like mythological creatures, which should have magic.
Count?
So
I mean, if it's like werewolves and stuff, does that count as magic?
Or minotaurs? Yeah.
If it's like supernatural or something, is that
probably? Because I mean, it's a magic adjacent at least, because they wouldn't exist in a way. But depends on how the world is built. Oh, you're getting really deep into it now.
I thought this would be a quick and easy quest, but maybe actually it'll be more complicated than we thought. So, okay, in terms of magic use, let's narrow it down. What would be your favorite kind of, if you think of a magical book, like magic in fantasy, what's the first thing you think of?
Magic and fantasy. I think of people conjuring things, really, and like witches and wizards. And well, I'm reading Foul Days by Genoveva Dimova, who was actually on our Ents episode. I can't remember what the podcast was, but on our Ents episode. And she's just recently brought out a book, and it's all about witches. And that magic is really ingrained into the whole fabric of the world. And I like that when the magic is very much the landscape and the people and how they interact, and then they can sort of are attached to it in some way. It's part of them rather than it's something that they own.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's just sort of you grow into your magic rather than learning the magic, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like,
it's not just a sect of people, like, you know, in Harry Potter, you've got the wizards and then there's the muggles who can't have no magic.
Right.
It's more like anyone can, like the Force, you know, like you can tap into
Force. The Force. I mean, that's fantasy. Or is it sci-fi? Yeah. Oh gosh, now we're getting into full.
It's fantasy sci-fi.
Right. It's sort of both.
That sometimes it's quite nice. You have that sort of chosen one trope, I suppose, in a book where it's like there's always one kid that has like an affinity to magic, and that's quite cool. I do quite like that. But there's something about it when the whole world is connected to the kind of more elemental magic, and you can sort of you have a gift, but you can tap in and out of it. I always quite like that sort of concept.
Yeah.
Or even the old sort of practices of more pagan-esque familiar magic that we're used to in our society, where there's different collections of, you know, you collect herbs, use herbs. It's more naturalistic magic. I quite like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I think I like similar. It's where sort of magic is almost like an element that, technically anyone can use, but maybe some are more trained in using it than others, and you know, you sort of become specialized in it and that kind of thing. I think I quite enjoy those ones, but I must admit I quite like those sort of fantasy world buildings and universes where it's like it's sort of normal every day, you know, like it's not dependent. If the magic was gone, it would still be an interesting story. You know, it was sort of, but the fact that there's magic there, it does add a little extra something. But it's not like, oh, the only reason this is an interesting story is because we've added magic. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a complement rather than essential to the story. Exactly. In that case, which I'm trying to think of my favorite. I mean, of course, you know, there's the Witches series in Terry Pratchett, which are just fantastic. And what I really like about that one is that they don't use the magic most of the time. They just use what they call headology, where like they... For example, there's one where like the head witch there's a guy with a bad back and she's sort of saying, yes, you must take this concoction and you must lie on a board made of oak, like for 3 nights, and you must not lift you know, anything more, like, you know, heavy than a blah, blah, blah or something. And he's going, oh, what? So the knots of the wood can, like the knots from my back can go into the wood. And it's like, Granny was impressed. She hadn't thought of that one. You know, it's like, but they can do magic. They're actually all really powerful witches, but they don't because they know that there's other ways of working magic and like working more in people's heads, and like it's a different kind of magic, which I quite like as well.
Oh, it's very fun actually. That it's different. It's more just talking to people and being there for them and being more like a nurse or a doctor for them.
Right? Which I mean is probably what witches were back in the day, right? Like,
they were healers and midwives and
you just you know what's sort of happening, and you're just
connected to the environment that you're in and the plants, and you know the properties of the plants and botany very well and things. That's I've always been interested in that, just as I'm a candle maker, so that's kind of witchy in a way.
You are a witch, yes.
I'm a witch, I'll be burnt. I'm definitely
with your own candles.
Yeah. I would honestly, it was like, the smell of Scarabraes I burn.
Which candle would you choose if you had to?
Oh, if I had to be burnt by my own candle. Oh, that's a good question.
This podcast has taken a very different turn to how I expected.
If I had to be killed by one of my own candles and that of it,
like the last smell.
Starcar, I think.
Starcar.
Yeah. Also, it smells like burning, like wood.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it would. It's very soothing. I feel like I'd be very soothed as I slowly died. What about you? You pick a candle now.
I see. I don't know, because the archaeologist desk one's definitely my favorite one. I'm looking at it now, but I do really like your Venus one.
Oh,
I'm your
you
Venus
smell
one.
like sweet pears.
Right? It's sort of, it just is like, a bit of sweetness at the end. Anyway, sorry.
You would be seen as a goddess, like the gender archaeology stuff we were
Yes,
talking about.
damsel in distress, someone save me. I smell of pear and vanilla.
If I ever smell that, I'm like, oh my God, Tilly's on fire.
Yes, quick. But yeah, and it's interesting also if we think of how the kind of concept of magic has developed, because I'm thinking of like all of the sort of older fantasy that I have read is very much the kind of traditional depiction of magic, I would say. Like, it's this big, epic thing that needs to be controlled in a way.
Yeah, or usually practitioners are... Well, you kind of have two types of practitioner. You have a sorcerer, you have a wizard. Usually they're men. There are often times where it's a woman and she's only a sorceress or something.
Yes, yeah.
She can never be a wizard for some reason. I mean, even in Harry Potter, the women can't be wizards.
Witches and wizards,
Yeah. So you have it. I mean, if you think of magic and I think of fantasy, I think of like the Legend of the Seeker and like Dark and Rahl, or like, evil guy. Or you think of Gandalf, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
You think of the hat,
the elves,
the wizard.
Or,
and all that kind of stuff. But do you know what, that kind of concept of witches and magic anyway? I mean, it is actually a very female thing historically. You have, they were brewers. They had the pointed hat so you could see them in the market. They had the broom to get rid of the mice, and they had the cat to get rid of the mice, and the broom to make sure the malt and the mice were out of the malt. And they were brewing potions. They were brewing beer. Yeah.
So all those guys at the bar drinking beer or whatever, or gals,
and they were often older women because either, seen by society standards as older.
Yeah, probably like 20.
Yeah, so they were either, spinsters technically. Well, not spinsters as a profession.
Not spinsters, because spinster, I learned the other day, is a word used to depict someone who could support themselves with their spinning and weaving expertise.
Yeah,
so
and
that's where the word spinster came from.
It's exactly the same thing for brewers.
Independent women.
Yeah, they could be independent and therefore a threat to society structure.
Yeah,
and they could brew and look after themselves and have their own money and have their own business, and that was a threat. And that's why witches are seen as bad, because often they were older, so maybe they had a mole or they had a longer nose, or they had a bit of a hunched back, and I don't know where the green came from, skin, but but that was it. And then it sort of developed over time. Then they rode a broom, and they were kind of licentious because they used to drink a lot.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And there's I'll find the article and I will link it in the show notes.
Oh yes, please do. Yeah. No, that's really cool. I did not know that about the brewer, so I can add that to my fun facts knowledge.
Yeah.
I go these things. But so gosh, there's just so many examples. I'm even just thinking of modern fantasy as well, and there's so many different examples of things, and you have a lot of like magic objects as well, I think, in more modern fantasy. So you'll have like the flying carpet, and which is not actually that modern. That dates all the way back to
that's ancient.
Ancient ones. But then you have the flying cars and wands and all of that kind of stuff, which I guess technically staffs were also a bit more old-fashioned magic as well. So it's you have a lot of different kinds of magic, and then like elemental magic, which can be manipulated. So it's sort of just around in nature, which I think I haven't actually read his Dark Materials for ages by Philip Pullman. I have a feeling that that's the whole thing with dust, right? Is that that's sort of magic, and that can be kind of
dust. It is, and then there's a knife that can part between worlds and things.
Which hilariously, because this happened so much to me when I was younger, I would only read things a lot of the time. I wouldn't hear words pronounced, but I'd read them all the time. So I used to say the subtle knife, and my parents were like,
still do that.
What are you talking about? Like the subtle knife, and then I'm like, you mean the subtle knife? I'm like, oh,
I think I only realized that grimacing is not grimace. Yeah, I think that was only about 2 years ago.
I still haven't worked out. Is it epitome or epitome? It's
Epitome,
right? Yeah.
but epitome actually comes from the Greek. I learned this the other day. A lovely author I was talking to at a book launch, she was telling me, because I said this, I was like, oh, so it was epitome and stuff. And she was like, actually, that comes from the Greek. That's how we would say it in a way. I can't remember exactly. It's not exactly the same pronunciation, but she was like, that's where it comes from. And that's why it looks like that. And I was like, oh, right. But then, English just come along and went, it's epitome.
We're just classic.
Yeah, we're so good.
So
like we're such a brilliant archaeologist that we just like know the pronunciation of things. Anyway, what is it in the Raiders of the Lost Ark? We're just that good of an archaeologist.
Yeah, right. We're just that good. We don't need to do any background research. We're just so that good.
We're just that good.
Man.
Well, there's so many examples, I think. So it's going to be really hard to narrow it down, I think.
Yeah, sorry. This might be a bit of a longer quest than I thought.
I'll go put the cauldron on.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
America. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By honoring your sacred vocation of business, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. At Grand Canyon University, our MBA degree program is 100% online, with emphases in business analytics and finance to help you reach your goals. Find your purpose at GCU. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Oh, thanks, Ash. That's a great cuppa.
You're welcome. It's Eye of Newt.
Thanks. So let's go back to our current quest. So far in this series, we've looked at quite a lot of objects, so a lot of tangible material culture, but I think really this is the perfect example of identifying intangible material culture.
Wait, tangible, intangible, what are you talking about, Tilly?
I'm so glad you asked, Ash. I'm waiting for our Oscars to arrive any day.
They're in the post, I've been assured.
So I need you to get your dice and I need you to do a roll for knowledge.
16.
Oh, very good.
Aha.
So tangible and intangible are words that are kind of used quite a lot in everyday life as well. And so we can apply them to archaeology and to material culture. So the definition of tangible is something that's perceptible by touch. So in terms of archaeology, this means objects, structures, buildings, so things that we can actually touch with our bare hands and like visually see in that respect. Intangible, is contrast, is unable to be touched, so not having a physical presence. So I guess the best example of that archaeologically would be things like that you can sense, so smells and sounds and all of that kind of thing, because we don't have actual physical evidence for them. But they must have existed, because it's impossible that the past was without sound, right?
That would be an interesting concept, actually, wouldn't it?
Right? Can you imagine suddenly at some point sound just shut into existence?
That would be very interesting.
So I would say that magic is like that. It's a sort of intangible material culture. So we need to almost identify it indirectly. So based on what we've discussed already in terms of what kinds of different magic there are out there, what kind of ideas would you have, Ash, in kind of the way that you could identify magic indirectly in the archaeological record?
Well, you'd find like wands, like objects, like staffs and stuff to channel magic, but also specifically if it was attached to a person, like a signature wand or something that can enhance your magic. So it would be like use wear traces on that, or it would even relate to the person.
That would be so
way.
Interesting to see if like magic, what kind of use wear magic. I need to do some more research on that. I need to do some experiments with I should enlist the wizards to do some experiments for me. So use a bunch of wands, and then I can see if there's any use wear traces on them, and then we can look at random sticks in the archaeological record and see whether they could have been used as wands.
Exactly.
That's so cool. That sounds really. Oh man, I know that this is like a fun podcast we're doing, but imagine, wouldn't that be awesome?
Very cool. It would be very cool. Because I mean, like I was just thinking in Harry Potter when they go to, I'm not a big Harry Potter fan. The wizard's like wand shop. I don't know the name. I was thinking
Ollivanders. Yeah.
Ollivanders. I was like, what's Gringotts? I think that's the bank.
That's the bank. Yeah.
Yeah. See, rubbish. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. Sorry, but like I think there's many reasons why. Anyway,
I can imagine why that might be.
But like I'm sure that their wand is suited to their magic or to them, right? It's like very personalized, you can only have that only that wand will work for you or something.
Right, yeah. So you might even be able to link it with a person depending on, I don't know, a particular magical signature or something like that, which would leave physical traces on the wand. But it would be interesting indeed to see, because I imagine back in the day, if we think about how like technology develops, probably the earliest form of wands we might see and not recognize as wands because they don't fit our definition of what a physical wand would look like. But so that's why then, things like user analysis or other forms of kind of scientific analysis would be really useful in identifying that.
Yeah, what could you even use as a wand? I mean, does it have to be long?
Does it have to be wood? Yeah.
Yeah, it can be bone or ivory. Could it be? Right? Does it have to be even long? Like, does it have to channel?
Could just
something?
be like
does it have to be pointed?
Just a rock.
Yeah, could it
just a clump of dirt? Like,
what classifies as a wand?
Right?
You know?
Yeah. What sort of things does a wand have to be? So this is definitely something we'd have to research a bit to find out how to look at those things. And actually rocks, I say rocks, you do have like seeing stones, which is technically another kind of like magical.
I'm not very clued up on seeing stones. What do you mean by seeing stones?
I mean, the thing, like, for example, the Palantir in Lord of the Rings, where, you can sort of use them to see into the future or into the past or see other locations or see into the minds of people. Or runestones as well.
Yeah, runestones as well. Yeah,
Which
okay.
You could technically use as like a historic source almost, because maybe there'll be like a really ancient seeing stone that you'd still be able to get like the vestiges of what you could see.
Like memory.
Yeah. Right?
Oh, memory stone. Cool. Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, that would be very cool.
To be able to see. So it would be almost like a historic source.
Or like a sentient object that you could sort of talk to.
Yeah.
Like a head.
Just a little stone head.
Well, that happens quite often, like skulls and stuff and books and things and heads of, who is it? Oh, Mimir. So Mimir was renowned for his knowledge in the Norse pantheon and Norse mythology, right?
Okay.
And wisdom. But then he gets beheaded during a war, and basically Odin carries around his head all the time and recites like secret knowledge and counsel to him and stuff. So he's like a person, but he becomes an object almost, because Odin's just like carrying him around like a purse.
Come with me. It's like, oh, for God's sake, Odin. I just want to go to another party.
Yeah, he's like, I don't have any knowledge now. Please stop. I don't know
everything I know.
But basically his name relates to the modern English word memory and like the concept. So he is a vessel of memory and knowledge. So he is like a seeing stone, but he's a bone stone.
Yeah.
You know, he's made of bone and he's
stone.
a person. Yeah. But it's just his head.
Okay. Yeah. Which, you know, goes back to our whole thing that we had at some point. Is it a person or is it an object? You know, personhood and how.
And if you ever play any like video games and stuff, fantasy video games, he's in God of War, and he's quite funny. Actually, has some good comebacks.
He sounds like a good character.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, you'd have like wands, you have seeing stones, and yeah, what else have we? Oh, we talked about magic carpets. Like that would also be something. Like maybe you could look at differences in kind of styles or typology of like the weave or something like that. I don't know.
Well, weave, weaving is magical.
True, you have a lot of,
Yeah, weaving magic is a huge system that you find. I mean, tapestry weaving, looking at that, there's a whole thing about like mages and how they would weave the strands of reality. You find that in Deborah Harkness's trilogy, the All Souls trilogy. It's literally pulling threads like earth, light, shadow, water, wind, all necromancy, like everything is pulling elements and into basically threads.
Okay.
And that comes from, you know, the fates and things like that. In Greek mythology, you also have their counterparts in Norse mythology. It was hard. It was difficult for me to say Norse.
I was just laughing because I was remembering in Hercules, we mentioned Hercules in the last episode as well, but you have the three fates and they're going, what's wrong with these scissors?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. And weaving, because I mean, what you're doing is almost a magical process, isn't it? It's taking the plant and then it's transforming it into something that you can use to wear to make clothing and fabric. So it is very.
It is magic. I mean,
it is
looks like magic to me. I have no idea
Yeah.
how people weave. Well, I know the practicalities, but yes, I can't do it myself. Which also, again, is that whole thing of looking at something, then a woven object, and then would there be a way of, again, you could probably do some sort of, not useware, but some kind of analysis to work out whether it was a tool for magical manipulation through weaving or whether it was just a woven piece of, you know, it was just weaving for something. Because I mean, that's
yeah. I mean, maybe they have different types of weave, so they could do like a different twills or they could, you know, different
techniques.
Yeah, different webs would be different things, you know, so there's lots of different, you've got all sorts of stuff with weaving and it's a very traditional skill. So anything, whenever you find it in fantasy, it usually comes from the myth and it's used as something to what's that word? It's like, you don't know how it's happening or you don't know what's going on, but then it sort of,
it just works.
Yeah, it just works, and therefore it's like it is magic. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So we already have a couple of examples of things that we can look for. We definitely have to go into that a little bit more, like see what kind of objects could have been used and how we might be able to identify them. But I think that's a good sort of starting point. But any other ideas? What else could we kind of look for?
I mean, there's evidence on humans and bones, skeletal pathologies and stuff you can look at. You can look at the kind of muscle attachments. Maybe if they're using one stone, one arm, would be like gigantic.
Well, there was a really interesting study, which I'll link in the show notes, done on archers using longbows, and they worked out that like constant use of a longbow using just one arm, like favoring one arm, does actually show up on the skeleton. Like you can tell if you look at a skeleton what kind of physical labor, continuous physical labor that person might have done. Which I think is
you find it on the skeletons of, I can't remember if it's millstones or something like that, but it's when they're using their foot, they always have one gigantic leg.
Cool.
So their right leg was always extremely muscular while their left leg wasn't, and stuff like that. So you have that. You can also get it with spinners too, because either they're spinning with one leg, you know, on the spinning wheel, they're keeping that motion going, and then they're making the thread elsewhere. So you've got that too. Yeah,
which there might be indeed, you know, especially if you're using like one arm. And again, we'd have to, I guess, look at what the different possibilities are. Like if people are particularly using hands for, or, you know, does magic even affect this? Like, does magic itself almost act as a muscle? So like, if you're constantly using magic with your hands, will that show something different to someone who doesn't use magic with their hands? Like
if you use your trowel, you get that strange muscle growth.
Oh yeah, like the
on your hand,
not like callus, but like something.
But it's like on the top of your palm, in between your index finger and your thumb, you'll get this muscle growth growing, and it's noticeably different on one hand than the other, depending on which one you use.
Which hand you favour?
And it always pops up, and everyone compares on the side. Look at my muscle growth,
trowel muscle.
Look at my trowel muscle. So like, you've got that sort of thing. So maybe it would have an actual physical effect, and also what happens if people have been fighting, throwing fireballs at each other.
Right.
I mean, they could also be that. Charred bones. There could be, sometimes people, I read a book recently, and it was like a tracking spell. And it was actually in order for this person to get in and off this island that was completely surrounded by magic and hidden, they actually had the spell inscribed on their chest, on the actual, what's the bone in between your ribs again?
The clavicle? No, that's the oh gosh, I should know this.
Sternum? Like your sternum? Yeah. So it was actually engraved on the sternum. And so you could see even onto the rib bones as well in runes and that. So that was quite,
That would be really nice to find a burial where you could see that. That would be a really nice, clear identification of magic use of some sort.
Yeah, so you could find markings on skeleton,
Yeah. Okay, so we have objects, we've got skeletons, and then I guess, I mean, it is archaeological still, looking at like written descriptions, right? Or
your historical archaeology.
Yeah, exactly. So written descriptions of magic use, and I suppose also ethnographic accounts as well.
Well, if you're doing a desk-based assessment, that's what you need, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You need all that stuff.
Yeah, so, you know.
Could be maps.
Could
maps
be... Or
you could have a map of territories of different types of magic, similar to like if anyone has seen The Last Airbender, there's different regions that are like earth kingdoms, fire kingdoms, that use different elemental magic. So why wouldn't there be a map showing you different territories or map markers, or even in the landscape as well?
Yes.
Physical markers in the landscape of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. And big craters where people have done, had fire battles or, something like that, which would be, And I mean, I guess you could also try and look in terms of living memory, but I don't think that would go far back enough. Although there is a really interesting study that actually Chris and Rachel talked about in last week's or 2 weeks ago, their episode of the Archaeology show, where they found a ritual in Australia, that had been kind of gone back for like 20,000 years or whatever, and had apparently just been continued through being constantly handed down through word of mouth. So they still do a similar thing today that they did 20,000 years ago with these.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Maybe there's just communities which practice magic, traditional magic, that would have that living memory somehow of
absolutely. I mean, even if you look at the kind of more fantasy based druids, yes, druid culture still exists in a different sort of neo-druid way here in the UK. People pass down those sort of rituals quite a lot, but then in fantasy Druidic kind of orders, it's all oral.
Right.
It's never anything else. You would never write anything down. Yeah. It's passed by elder to student to Padawan.
But so I mean, that it's quite a lot to be getting on with. I mean, how would you suggest we then approach this particular problem that we've been given?
Well, I think we'll probably go back to the wizards and tell them that actually their undertaking is going to be take a lot more time and thought than they were originally expecting, because it sounds like there's a lot of stuff that could potentially, you can't pinpoint when magic existed, but maybe we could try and figure it out from archaeological evidence. So we'll have to go back and have a wee think about that, I think.
Yeah, and use a lot of other people as well, I think. We're going to need to enlist some help.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's about it then for this episode of And My Trowel. We hope you enjoyed not necessarily the completion of this quest, but the very, very start of this quest. If, as always, you have any suggestions for topics or future episodes, do get in contact via email or social media. All of our contact info, as well as any references and further reading for the points we've discussed today, can be found in the show notes. And Don't forget to check out the other shows on the Archaeology Podcast Network. There's lots of them. They cover all kinds of interesting different topics. And if you'd like to really support us and our fellow podcast hosts on the network, you can become a member. All information can be found at archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
You know what, Tilly? I think before we get too deep into this project, because it sounds like it's going to be a long one, I think we need a bit of a break. What do you say we take tomorrow off and we do something fun?
Oh, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. What did you have in mind?
Well, do you like quizzes?
I love quizzes.
Then I have an idea.
This episode was produced by Chris Webster from his RV traveling the United States, Tristan Boyle in Scotland, DigTech LLC, Culturo Media, and the Archaeology Podcast Network, and was edited by Rachel Roden.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.